You did not smile when I said that.
Did you smile when you said that?
He can't help it. He's trying not to.
He's so cute. I just want to go pinch his cheeks.
I'm already halfway through my seltzer.
I'm no way through my seltzer.
You're just a no way seltzer guy. I feel like I have time to get another one. It's amazing what you can do in a matter of seconds. You know how the countdown goes before church?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll see there's 1 minute left. It's amazing what you can do in a minute before you're supposed to be up there.
We usually start like 2 or 3 minutes late anyway. Pastor Joe!
What's this music for anyway?
Keeps people
Fill on the
interested.
air.
You
While
heard
we
a filler
talk
before,
silly.
TJ? Come on.
It's a good title though for the day.
What?
I like it.
What's the title?
Oh. Say it. No, stop.
Yes.
Oh.
For the podcast. Hello, Facebook.
Hello, Facebook.
Thank you
Hello.
for listening to our nice, relaxing, uninterrupted intro music.
And banter.
One time. I just ask once.
We did it. We did it like the first couple times that we did that. We just sat here, respecting your Facebook music.
That's true. We did. It was really boring.
Yeah.
So can we give Facebook a preview of what's coming on the episode?
Well, you might have already through your title. But,
Can they see it?
Peek.
Oh, they see it.
Oh, who's
Hey! Look at that beard.
It is a good beard. I wish I could grow a beard. I can't grow any beard.
Brother, there's one thing that's sweeter than your beard, and it is your voice. Lay it on us. Say
Thank
hello.
you. Well, hello. Nice to be with you guys.
Today
Greetings.
on Rural Pastor Talk, we have Alistair Begg.
No, it's Keith Getty.
Keith Getty.
I wish.
No, we have our dearly beloved brother who we've been interacting with for a long time. Robert Adair, you were our first foreign correspondent, and we were so thrilled. We were like, we knew our moms were listening for sure, and then you wrote in, and somebody from all the way over there
That was
in
pretty
Scotland was listening.
Robert, do you remember what episode you started to listen on?
I listened on episode 1 and 2, and I think I messaged in after episode 3.
So you've been with us
Um,
since the
Since
beginning.
the beginning. Wow.
Yeah,
You
Cool.
should get an award or a pin.
He got a Reformed Ethics book.
Oh,
Remember
that's
he won that?
right.
I did. Yeah.
That's. I took out a loan to ship that over there. Yeah,
We'll hand deliver it next time.
indeed,
There you go.
indeed. I like it. So, okay, can we hide him now?
Yep. Okay.
Tidily away, and we'll begin the actual podcast. Actually, that hiding him doesn't really do anything for the people listening on audio, does it? That's okay.
He'll just be, quieter for
Yeah.
a few minutes.
Okay, well, good job.
Sorry, I just muted that.
Good job. Okay, so we're ready to go with the cold open?
I think so.
Joe, you've been working on this all morning.
Uh-huh.
All right, ready?
Yep.
Joe, it's good to see you this afternoon, mate. I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to our show today.
I think the topic is pure dead brilliant.
Have a swatch at me notes.
Looks great, but I don't think I much care for the cold open. What were you thinking?
Aye, be nice or I'll give you a scalp it lug.
Oh, I hope nobody was offended.
Me too.
A Scottish invasion on this episode of Rural Pastors Talk.
Oh, man. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Rural Pastors Talk, a podcast highlighting the advancement of Christ's kingdom in rural places. Get serious, Joe.
Just like
We
the
have a
town
show.
you live in, the rural church is not the baby pool we splash around in before moving on to bigger opportunities. It is not the place we're confined to until we can take off the training wheels. It is not God's penalty box as a punishment for breaking the rules.
Jesus died for his people, and as long as Christ's people live in rural places, a vibrant, healthy, multiplying presence of his church will be there too. My name is TJ Freeman. I'm the lead pastor of Wellsboro Bible Church in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, where it's always serious.
Every single moment of every single day. I am Pastor Joe Wagner from God's Family Fellowship Church, also in Wellsboro, PA.
What's going on, guys? Joshua McLaren, pastoral assistant at Wellsboro Bible Church.
And on this episode of Rural Pastors Talk, guess who's here? Our boy, our brother, our longtime listener, first-time caller, Robert Adair. Welcome to the show, my brother.
Great to be with you guys.
How do we
Greetings
do?
From, I am speechless. It was
So
breathtaking.
are
Me too.
we.
Me too,
So
Robert.
are
I'm
we.
speechless too.
Yes. Who are you? Where are you from?
I'm Pastor Robert Adair. I'm the pastor of Alness Baptist Church in the Highlands of Scotland, and originally not from Scotland though.
Well, we've been calling you our Scottish friend for a long time. This
And
is
that's all right. I will take that graciously.
It's a troubling development. Where are you actually from?
I am originally from Ireland, but more specific, Northern Ireland, which is the 6 counties at the north of the island, from a small town called Ballymena.
Awesome.
If you want to be really fancy, the Gaelic is Ballachmina, meaning middle town in the native tongue. But that is where I originally hail from. But my mother is Scottish and was born in Glasgow, in the Central Belt.
Awesome. That's great. So thanks for being here. Josh,
Yes, sir.
you coordinated this, even though you were gone and now you're back.
That was weird.
You coordinated this. Tell us how today's interview came about.
Well, Robert reached out to me and said, hey, I really appreciate you guys. I would love to come on and describe what it is like to serve in rural Scotland in the church. So,
And it made our day.
yeah,
For a number
seriously,
of reasons.
Super excited.
One, because we know that there's a rural pastor who is serving the Lord faithfully in places very different from where we live. And it's awesome to see the expansion of Christ's kingdom in all, in the whole world. But we've been specifically focusing on the rural church. And then the encouragement that it is to us to know that there are other brothers who are thinking like we're thinking and have desires like we have, and then have even tuned into the show. That's really encouraging. And we want more guys to do what you're doing, Robert, by reaching out and saying, hey, I'd like to offer the opportunity to come on and chat. We love it. It's great. So we're so thankful to have you here.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to be able to share with you guys today. Really do.
Awesome.
And I found it such a blessing just to be encouraged by what you guys are doing there in Wellsboro and in Pennsylvania. And it somewhat transcends across the Atlantic as well.
Amen, brother. Even in just a little bit of time you and I had to talk before we got started, you were dealing with and facing a lot of the same issues that we're dealing with and facing from COVID to building construction to doing all sorts of different jobs. It's that job of being a pastor it does translate across the Atlantic and Pacific all over.
It does. But before we get there, we need to know about your family, because if the ladies are watching on Facebook and they see the beard, they're going to be wondering, is there a Mrs. Adair?
There is a Mrs. Adair. We are happily married 5 years. My wife, Gemma, is from Scotland, from the small fishing village of Pittenweem and Anstruther, where you
What?
get the world's best fish and chips.
Ah,
That's so cool.
What was the name of the village again?
Pittenweem and Anstruther.
Okay.
that's great. Well, when we go do the pastor swap thing, we're going to get some fish and chips.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm
There you
serious
go.
about that too, brother. we will have to arrange something. It just seems like such an adventure to go and hang out with you.
Absolutely. Do you have children?
I do. I have 2 children. I have a daughter whose name is Macy, and she will be turning 3 at the end of the month. And I have a son, Harrison, who is turning 2 in December.
Wow. Close together.
Yeah.
That's great. And then your quiver is continuing to fill. It's wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your church.
Yeah, we are. I don't like using the term small. We're a growing fellowship
Right.
in the rural town of Alness in the Highlands of Scotland. We were formed in 1979. I am the church's fourth pastor in that time, and we're just wanting to see the good news of Jesus spread here in Scotland. Scotland was once known as the land of the book, with great preachers like John Calvin, among others, a great rich history. But Scotland is now one of the fastest declining places in the world where religion and faith and church attendance is happening. There are now more non-Christians than there are Christians in Scotland, and we have become more a diverse nation, and we've become a more liberal nation in the sense of our understanding and theology. And so, with that, brings its own struggles and difficulties as well.
Is
What
after you, Joe.
What are some of the demographics of your town? Um,
Well, to put it in context, the Highlands of Scotland has a population of 235,830. If you equivalent that, that is a country the size of Belgium. To put it in y'all's terms, the state of Maryland is the closest equivalent to what the size of the Highlands are.
Hmm.
Um, in Alness itself, we have about 5,810, and I know Wellsborough is about 3,200
right.
roughly. So we're just slightly bigger than you guys in that context. But the area that makes up the Highlands of Scotland in the north is about 9,906 square miles
Hmm.
within that region.
You had said something earlier before we got started about you were right on the edge of something. So you are very far north, right?
Yes. I jokingly say we're the last point of civilization before you go into the really highlands and the islands.
Huh.
Um, that comment at times gets me into trouble with my brothers further north than that. But yeah, we are what would be deemed as the last big rural town as you head north in Scotland. But you know we face the same problems that you guys face. Alness as a town itself is in the top 20% of deprivation within Scotland. You know, we have two affluent areas of deprivation, one at the west end of the town and one at the east end of the town. And the church itself is located within one of those areas of deprivation as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. Does that bring in drug problems and things like this?
Yep,
Yeah.
we face the same issues:
Yeah.
drug, alcohol, social violence, even domestic violence, all the everyday issues that most towns and villages have. We have those same problems, and we're dealing with those same problems. Um, the difficulty with it is with isolation of being so rural. There crops up more difficulties in how you're able to address them and get the support networks that because we're not close to major cities or what we would term as the central belt, where Edinburgh and Glasgow, the two major cities of Scotland, are. It provides a bit more difficult in getting resources and helping and supporting people.
Yeah. Absolutely makes sense. Similar here. Then in your area, church-wise, are there a lot of healthy churches?
Yeah, we have five churches in Alness. There is the Free Church, which would be what we call it the Pioneering Church. It's the biggest church here in Alness. We have two Church of Scotland. There's a river that runs through the middle of our town, which would divide what was the two old parish systems of Alness and Roskeen. Um, but as a town, they've kind of merged together. We also have a small Calvary chapel,
Hmm.
and then there's ourselves as the Baptist church.
And is there good unity amongst the churches?
Yeah, so since we arrived in November of 2016, myself and the Free Church minister, together with the other brothers in our fraternal, have launched Allness Churches Together initiative, in which we seek as a band of brothers in Christ, evangelical witness
Hmm.
within our town. We try to do 3 events each year. One of those being a community carol service
Mm.
in the local gymnasium. So it's not attached to any one church, but it's out in the community. We do a joint Good Friday service with all the churches together, and then we do a big summer hymn sing in our local heritage gardens, where the churches and members of the public can join together
Hmm.
in a summer's evening to worship and praise God together.
That's so cool. Follow up on that, Joe?
Well, I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I was just thinking about some of the challenges that you might face in your town and the same challenges that we face in our town. I kept thinking about the role of traditionalism and how it can be good at sometimes, but then also how it can kind of slow us down a little
Yeah,
bit as well.
yeah, no, there definitely is that. There is still some people would say that the Highland mentality would be a few years or even a decade behind where our central belt and our uh, metropolitan cities would be. And so traditionalism within the Highland and rural areas would play a big part of that. And part of that is that, custom and tradition was that you were always seen to be going to church on Sunday,
Right.
or your parents sent you to Sunday school, or I go because my neighbors go, and while there is a basic Christian understanding, we can see within our schools and different aspects of our community where the understanding of biblical knowledge is maybe not where it once was, and so you're nearly having to begin afresh with a new generation, bringing the very much the infant milk where the spiritual meat would have once been.
How does that impact evangelism? Because I've been to like some island nations where Christianity was predominant for a long time, but now has subsided. But there's still just a cultural identification with Christianity, and I've talked to some guys there, and they said it just makes evangelism really hard because everyone already has a sense of the lingo.
Yeah, there is that. Definitely, evangelism is not easy. Trying to break into a rural, established town comes with its own difficulties. One of the things that we have here is we have a big Jehovah's Witness
Mm.
presence within the town as well.
We apologize for
Um,
that.
and so that in itself also brings struggles and difficulties in trying to change mindsets and conceptions of what church is about, what Christianity is about, the relevance of Christianity in everyday life. And so when society and education and culture begin to change those things, and Christ is kind of taken out of them, the role of the church and its role of evangelism becomes slightly more difficult in being able to draw others onto Christ. But we do pray and hope that through the opportunities that we're presented with, that by God's Spirit and God's grace, that people do come to a saving knowledge of the Savior.
Hmm. That's awesome. So, as you came into a rural place, then where were you living before this? Were you in a bigger area or another rural
No,
context?
we were in a small fishing village.
Okay.
I have to say my hometown of Ballymena in Northern Ireland is a town of 55,000 all in. So coming from what I would call a very large town into a very small rural fishing village and a rural highland community was somewhat of a culture shock, as well. But in that sense, trying to adapt to that and change to that.
So,
We have a.
sorry
Go
to
ahead,
interrupt
sorry.
you, but what specifically about that was an adjustment for you, going from the bigger context to the smaller? Because I experienced that even growing up in a small place, but then being away in a big place, forgetting really what it's like in the small place and coming back in. And I know a lot of pastors who leave big places to go to big places. Either they or their family are so shocked by the smallness that they have a really difficult time making that adjustment and they leave. So what were some of the things that you found were a challenge for you to adjust to?
Yeah, I think initially, when I started out, that sense of everybody knows everybody, and that sense of rural community, everybody knows everybody and knows everybody's business. That took a bit of getting used to when you come from a big city where you kind of can blend in and not be seen or known, to be known in such a public way. I remember shortly after arriving here, walking up and down the high street, and people going, "How you doing, Pastor Robert?" or "How?" And I didn't know who they were from Adam, but they knew me. And so you kind of had to adapt quickly to work out who was who and who was associated with which church and who was associated with different families and things within communities. And over time that has got easier. But it did come as a cultural shock. As I say, we have a thing called Highland Time. I don't know if you have it over there in Wellsboro, but everything is done at quite a considerably slower pace
Huh.
than our cities. And
I was going to
you
ask
know,
you, very in when you say Highland, give us a feel for what that culture would be like. I would imagine that at its root and its base, it's probably very similar to a lot of the culture that we see and find in our rural areas, but with a little bit different sort of a flavor. But when you say Highland, describe.
yeah. So you would have quite a considerable farming community. You would have quite a considerable fishing community. You would have quite large distances between congregational members. So if if I take my two furthest congregational members, there's 33 miles between their houses.
Hmm.
Um, and that's quite a distance. There's nearly nearly 2 hours between their houses and everybody in between. So you kind of get this sense of vastness as you're driving quite considerable time to meet members from church. And it's you know we have folks that drive quite considerably time to come and worship with us as well. And I think that in itself, is quite vast. Again, we have the same challenges of small rural communities in regards employment, in regards to education. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of our young people, they finish up with high school, want to go to university, and they would go to one of the big cities, but they don't always
Right.
return.
Mm.
Um, we have it where young people who grew up in the church get married and then move away from the church because they don't want to be longer seen as the infants in the church growing up, but they want to start their own fresh stories. And so you have that, and you wrestle with that context as well. And the same with older members that have realized that they're maybe too far away from family and want to go back to family, either down what we call down south towards England or the Central Belt. Um, and so there's an always changing demographic within the town and within the community as people come and people go.
Would you say that in your time in your last community and here that you've developed a heart for rural ministry?
Yeah, it was kind of funny because when I was searching and walking with God as to where to serve in my first pastorate, I knew the major city of Inverness, which is about 20-minute drive from Alness, but I had never heard of Alness. I had been as far south as the borders. I had been as far east as I could go onto one of the islands, and as far west, but I had never heard of Alness. And I remember when I came to preach for the first time, we left about 5 a.m. in the morning to get up to this place, and it just seemed like you were driving for hours and hours into the middle of nowhere. Um, but as you come down into the town of Alness, you come over what's known as the Black Isle, and there's a bridge called the Cromarty Bridge that goes over the Firth of Water there. And I had a great sense of God sharing with me from Jeremiah 29, verse 7, seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you. He talks in Jeremiah about going into exile, but what he does talk about is pray to the Lord on its behalf, and in its welfare you will find your welfare. And every time I come back to the church to preach, or to preach as looking to become their pastor, this verse of scripture became stronger and stronger and stronger. I listened to Mark Dever and the guys there at Nine Marks, and Mark, I remember, said, "Preach, pray, love, and stay." That's one of his kind of fundamental statements. And for me, I kind of realized that if I was coming to this community, then it wasn't for a short time, that it was going to be for a long time. It was going to be investing in the community with everything that I had, planting my roots here, raising my family here, doing life with people here, and doing it as long as the Lord kept me here, or keeps me here.
Yeah, that's huge. And a lot of times here, and I don't know if it's similar there, rural places are used as a stepping stone in ministry for
Yeah.
pastors who come out. Yeah. And I had a similar experience where I was reading Martin Luther's commentary on Galatians, and he just made a comment about turning a screw. As you minister over the years, it's like you're turning the same screw. And then he went on to say the next pastor can come in and back it out in a short amount of time, but you give your life to turning the same screw. And that is what really made me think deeply about going to a place and staying in a place. And truthfully, if it weren't for that, in my first 3 years here, I would have probably not made it. I would have probably went back to someplace warmer with more sushi. But
Yeah.
I didn't, because I had that concept in my mind and felt that conviction, and I felt convicted to stay and shepherd these folks that God had brought. But ministry in rural places requires that kind of mindset, because it is, there are just
No,
some,
definitely. I know the church here has been blessed, and its four pastors have stayed more than a decade, and God willing, I'll be able to stay more than a decade as well. But as you say, a lot of guys use rural ministry, spend 3 to 5 years, and then go on to, they've struggled with it, or they found it difficult, or they've realized this isn't what I've been called to, and move away. And I know within our rural context, we find it more and more difficult to find pastors to fill the role within our highland and rural churches within Scotland.
Are you having difficulty finding pastors who are willing to come out? Like, do you see rural churches that go either without a shepherd for a long time and possibly close, or who maybe have somebody who would not be the best fit for that ministry just because they couldn't find someone?
Yeah, there's been a few occasions where that's happened. I know of a church about 30 minutes down the road that spent 5 years in vacancy, looking for a pastor. One of the local churches in Alness, have been vacant for 3 years, and only this week have called a new pastor. And I know it's difficult for churches. The church here was in vacancy between a year to 2 years before calling successive pastors, and it takes that time. Because I know that the churches then have to rethink and reconfigure and think, well, what are we looking for as a fellowship, and how do we see our church going forward within our community, and with all the changing demographics that keep happening.
Yeah, we've seen similar things around here. So with that in mind, then, what are some of the fruits or the joys that you've seen through rural ministry that maybe you would use to encourage somebody who is considering a call to a rural place?
Yeah, you know, I'll be honest. The first 6 months here, I was waiting for them to realize that I was a fake, and that I was going to be ushered out the door. Um, but that feeling soon passes as you begin to get into ministry, and as you begin to love the community and get to know the community. And I think there has to be an openness and a willingness to roll your hands up and to get your hands dirty within the community. One of the blessings we have seen is that when I arrived, we began looking at how we could reach out to our community, how we could become more of a community hub. And we launched an initiative called Churches Left the Building, where every May and June we take our Wednesday night midweeks and we go out and we do random acts of kindness in the community, whether that be community flower beds, whether that be litter pickups, whether that be our local elementary school tidying up, painting their fences, mending things. And we culminate that at the end of June as the schools break off for summer recess with a community weekend, and we have a big community weekend fun day on the Saturday with inflatables and a cookout, and we have a community service on a Sunday, and we can get anything up to 250 folk at the community fun day on a Saturday. But trying to get that
Right.
that crossing over into a Sunday has proved difficult. But year on year, we've seen increase. Year on year, we've seen people come back. Um, and so, that's been a great encouragement to us as a fellowship. Um, Another one has been funeral ministries. I never
Hmm.
thought that would be one in which uh, I would have seen myself, but it is one in which God has provided opportunities to meet with families that you would not normally meet with, and to be able to bring the hope of the gospel, but also be able to bring pastoral care. And out of that, we have seen people connect with the churches, though it may still be on the fringes. We've seen them begin to come to church and to begin to wrestle with the questions. Um, and that has been a tremendous blessing, tremendous privilege to bring the hope of Christ in such difficult circumstances as well.
Speaking of difficult circumstances, I think so many of us in rural ministry, particularly right now as we go through COVID, but we deal with some struggles sometimes. How would you encourage a rural pastor anywhere in the world? How would you encourage them? What would you share with
Uh,
them to give them encouragement?
Yeah, get a band of brothers around you, whether that be your deacons or your elders. Confide in them, ask them to pray for you. You know, uh, Ensure that you keep your priorities right. And I'll be the first to admit that at times rural ministry. Last week's episode, I was telling Josh, I knew I needed to listen to it, but I was very aware about what was about to be said in it, and feeling burnout and feeling tiredness and running on fumes. Because like you guys, we do experience the sense of the pastor does everything. Probably not intentional by the congregation, but there is still that mentality that the minister does most things. And so, I would encourage my brothers, stay faithful to the gospel, stay faithful to Christ, stay faithful to your family, your wives and your children, and stay faithful to God's people, and take the rest when you realize you need rest. Take it. You know, Christ's church will still go on with or without you. And that's a hard bullet to swallow at times. It doesn't evolve around you. Um, you know, but in doing that, I think seeking that solitude in Christ, and that depth of your relationship in Christ, and covenant in that above all things will help you succeed, will help you grow and develop as a pastor, and it will help you and encourage you as you seek to be an under shepherd to the flock which God has placed under your care.
Yeah, I love that. So you've touched on so much of what we've come up against as some of the challenges. One is isolation. If you're
Mhm.
alone, it's really easy to be alone in your church because sometimes it's even a structure where the pastor's here, but then there's the deacons here, and the
Yeah.
deacons kind of oversee the pastor in some ways, but the pastor does most of the work. That can be a really lonely situation. Smaller
Yeah.
congregations, sometimes there's an age distance between the pastor and the flock, and that can make him feel alone. Sometimes
Mhm.
there's an understanding like we should be up here as pastors, and we don't want to kind of let people see behind the curtain and see that the wizard is really just a little guy, running the thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you referred to. We're sitting in our offices going, I hope they don't
So if we
realize
don't
I'm a
find
fake.
I'm a fake.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
all of these things can leave us just feeling alone. But then being a church, if here, I don't know what it's like there, but there was a big separation movement here for a long time where churches are not connecting with each other because this church doesn't quite believe what I believe or doesn't quite do this right. So we'd have degrees of separation. You can be close to this one, but not close to this one. And that,
Yeah. No.
that
I,
legacy is bad for us. Isolation is bad. So, sorry, I
No,
interrupted.
definitely.
Go for it.
No, definitely. I can attest to that. I have seen that firsthand where churches won't relate with one another. And, I said to my brothers when I arrived, where the key themes of the gospel are central in all our ministries, we'll be able to work together. I jokingly, uh, take cheap shots at the Free Church Minister of Scotland, should I say, in regards to his view on baptism, but by the same token, he does the same with me. But out of that brotherly affection, we know that, in all things we have the gospel together. The secondary differences, are far removed from trying to bring those who don't know Christ to know Christ.
Hmm.
And if we stay in our own small corners, then we're never going to get anything done. And I remind my folk quite often that when we get to heaven and on that last day and we read in Revelation that there, from each tribe and tongue and nation, there won't be anything like Presbyterians or Baptists or Lutherans or Methodists. We will be Christ ones, and so we hold to that first and foremost.
That's right. That is so true and such a good reminder. And so for us as pastors, we want to make sure we're leaning into those relationships, especially because Christ's kingdom is much bigger than our own churches. And we need to participate with one another as we see the kingdom expand, which is why even a conversation like this, by God's grace, will be beneficial for the sake of the kingdom, not just either of our churches.
No, and indeed, and I'll be honest. I grew up in a housing scheme in Northern Ireland, and it was an American missionary team that brought me to faith and developed my faith. And if it wasn't for them guys and investing in me, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Hmm.
By God's grace, doing this. I qualified as a culinary art chef. That's what I believed I was going to do. But God had bigger plans, and it was through coming over to the States and through the Reformed Youth Movement camps in Laguna Beach, Florida, that I was walking along the Gulf of Mexico, and God said, "I want you to become a minister." And I thought, "Who, me?" I'm just a small town kid from Ballymena, Northern Ireland. Dyslexic, deaf, and how are you going to use me for the
Hmm.
kingdom? And it's just been amazing that over the last number of years, how God has uh, faithfully and graciously used me as a communicator of the gospel, because as this expression goes, I wasn't the brightest crayon in the coloring inbox, but for me, those things have been overcome by God's grace and God's mercy, and I have the honor and the privilege and the beauty to share the gospel of Jesus Christ
Hmm.
week in and week out.
What a
Praise the Lord.
pastor's
Um,
heart, man! I just
Indeed.
tell you, that's you sharing that testimony and even just the tiny bits and pieces that you've shared has been a blessing for me today, and I'm sure for so many of you guys that are out there listening as well. That's
Also,
an incredible thing.
Further evidence that God uses Florida in special ways.
Amen.
Yeah. I should go down there for a little refreshing. Yeah. No, that's awesome. It just struck me as you were talking. There are 4 of us here. Josh, you can't see right now. Flash yourself up there, Josh. There he is.
Robert still can't see me. He sees you guys.
Okay.
but he knows I'm here.
So, history major, Josh.
Hello.
History and education, myself. Sign maker /
Communications major.
Communications major, sign maker,
Graphic designer, salesman, marketing.
website designer, and now we're 4 pastors that God has called into service in rural places. So it's not unusual for the Lord to take men out of other vocations or other directions and plop them down in this service that none of us deserves to be a part of or qualified except for the gracious work of God.
And often weren't looking for in
True.
large parts of our lives.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Excellent. Well, we are nearing the end of our time. Are we over it?
I wasn't even tracking this
Oh,
episode.
you knew what would happen. Yeah,
Well,
that's good. We don't pay any attention to time here. We just go.
I think it should be a rule when we have guests. Time's irrelevant.
We're on Highland time.
Yeah.
We have something
There you
like
go.
Highland time here. They call it Miller time.
Oh my gosh. Steve.
That's the closest thing we have. Yeah.
That's probably a swear word. where it comes from.
Yeah. That's right.
Oh, no.
Guinness time.
Guinness time. Yeah, that's right. They we have some South American brothers here, and they are on a different time schedule than we are. But you were nice and prompt for the beginning of this episode, and we were on Highland time. So, well done.
Thank you.
We have 2 really important questions that we save for the end, and since you've listened to the episode, you probably know what they are. The first one is, what is your favorite hymn?
My favorite hymn, if I'm honest, it is probably going to be. See, I have a couple in there. I've been pondering these, but my favorite hymn is probably going to be "It Is Well With My Soul."
Mm.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's
Is there
definitely.
is there a reason that jumps out at you?
I think even in the midst of difficulties and trials and tribulations, and I've had my fair share of them. God's peace surpasses all understanding, and I know that whatever my lot, He has taught me to say it is well with my soul. That the things that we face on this mortal coil will only be temporary and outweigh what we will get when we receive the eternal crown of glory. And so I think it's good to remind ourselves that even in those dark and those difficult times, Christ is always with us.
I have a part B to that question.
Oh, go.
Robert, do you lead the singing at your church?
No, I have at times led. What we would do is sing the Psalms unaccompanied. So there has been at times I have led the Psalms unaccompanied.
Oh, wow. If I'd have known that you had done that, we would have prepped you beforehand and we would have asked you to lead us in singing one of the Psalms.
119. That's what we would sing.
Wow, I can't remember though.
It's not short.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah.
one.
Yes. It would take some time.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do it
No,
off the cuff.
No,
We can interpret that. That's
All
is that
right.
Gaelic?
Robert,
Yeah.
feel no
Nice.
pressure from these guys to do
Yeah.
anything.
Joe, you have the
that's
second
okay.
question?
All right, this is probably
It's the most.
DJ says it's the most important question of
We
all.
judge you strictly based on your answer to this one question.
Okay, that's fine.
What is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Well, I definitely have 2 answers to this, and I can't separate them. One is that there's an ice cream made by a company in Northern Ireland called Mods, and it's called Poor Bear's Ice Cream, and it is a honeycomb ice cream.
Oh,
And if you were to put that ice cream on top of your head, your tongue would try to beat your brains out. Man, that stuff is just it will be in heaven. I'm
Oh.
totally assured of that. The second would be I'm a big fan of Turkish delight. And so we get Turkish delight, rose water and dark chocolate ice cream over here.
They've got way
Uh,
classier ice cream than we
Way
do.
classier.
yeah, and so
He didn't even.
you win.
He was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah."
Yeah.
I've been in the States 11 times, and I love my brothers dearly there. And you do good ice cream, but
Yeah.
Oh, man.
when we bring you here, we will teach you ice cream.
I will not argue with that. That sounds amazing. Yeah, both of those are just. I'm embarrassed to say cookie dough now is my favorite.
All right. So
But
the
I
only
must admit,
other
I still
time.
I like peanut butter ice cream, and I like Reese Pieces ice cream, and I like cookie dough ice cream. I still have them in the freezer as well. But
Uh-huh.
It does
for
sound
those
classy
special
coming out of his
occasions.
mouth. All right, so you need to describe to our brothers in the States or anywhere what Turkish delight is.
So it's a rose water jello, which is really really tasty, and it can either be covered in corn flour, which or confectioner sugar, and you can eat it like that, or we here in the UK have it covered in dark chocolate, which makes it all the more better.
Yeah.
And it's to do with the cows and the milk that we have here in Ireland and the UK. They produce sweeter milk because the grass is greener. Um, and I would have to say that being from Ireland.
I was just, there'd be some farmers around here that might take you up on that, but I hear you.
Yeah. So out of that, that is what Turkish delight is.
Did you know that, Joe?
I remember reading it in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and that was my
Oh.
only.
I'm not that cultured. I didn't have even that reference in my head.
So for Lydia's 25th birthday, my mother-in-law got her a basket of gold things, and in it was Turkish delight, but it was not like what Robert described.
It's probably made like Hershey's, made by Hershey's or something.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
I would love to taste like authentic, non-packaged. Anyway, that
Yes,
was all.
Indeed.
Turkish delight.
We do have one more question that we have never asked before.
Uh-oh.
Can you tell us some Scottish phrases that we would not otherwise know?
Oh, Scottish phrases. I could tell you "Seed me Fulcha," which is 1,000 welcomes.
Ah.
Um, um,
Is that when you
Uh,
would say, like, we're so glad you're here?
yeah, "Seed
Actually-
me Fulcha."
Yeah.
One of our elders has that on his door.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I never knew-
Fulcha means welcome.
I never knew
Uh,
exactly how to pronounce it.
Okay.
Yeah. It depends. In Scotland, there's so many different dialects of Scottish words, so it's very difficult to pin them down. When I arrived here, I was told I pronounced it Alness, Alness, and was very quickly told by the brothers here that it's not pronounced Alness, it's pronounced Allness.
Hmm.
And so if I wanted to stay in with the locals, I had to change
Oh, boy.
the way I pronounced it.
Yeah. We have that with, like, Covington. or
Covington.
Covington,
So I
yeah.
was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about I'm getting the messages?
Well, we would say we're going for the shopping or going for
Yeah.
the groceries. You know, there's again there's it's different words.
But you would know what somebody meant if I said I'm getting the messages. You know they're going to the grocery
Yeah.
store,
Yeah, going
not
to
to the
grocery
post
store.
office. Yeah.
No, yeah. But there's many different ones. Problem is, you should actually have my wife on here because she
She's actually
speaks them from Fife, and they have a whole dialect onto themselves.
I'd love to hear it.
Town is pronounced tune,
Mm-hmm.
Toon instead of Town. You kin means you kin,
Ah.
which is another one. But yeah, The problem is trying to remember them off the top of your head.
Sure, yeah, I know. You're a
That-
fish being asked to tell us what the water is like. But
Yeah.
what about Swatch? I have a Swatch at me notes.
A swatch.
You
That. I'm trying to work out where that one's from.
Well, it's from Google, of course. Yeah.
Well, my brother, I'll give you another piece of advice. Never trust Google Translate.
Yes, indeed. What about my other one from the beginning? I'll give you a scalp it lug.
Give you a sculpted lug. That means I'll give you a clash round the head. If you don't behave yourself, you're getting a scalp round the head.
I like that.
I'm
That's good. Yeah, that one
tell
came.
my kids that one.
That one came from YouTube. So
There you go.
excellent. Well, thank you, brother, for enlightening us and being enlightened by our American Scottish perspective. Anything else, brothers, that you'd like to ask?
It was a blessing to have you here and to talk with you and have you share and many different things. It was just awesome, Robert. We're gonna have to have you on
it's been
again.
a pleasure. Been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, we love you. We love what you're doing over there. We are happy to be partners in the gospel with you.
Thank you.
We've prayed for your church and for you, and we'll continue doing that. And
Please.
hope to meet in person.
Amen.
Yes, we will try and make that happen some way, somehow.
That would be phenomenal.
Robert,
Yeah.
if people wanted to look you up or your church or anything, where might they be able to do that at?
Yeah, we are on Facebook. So if you type in Alness, ALNESS Baptist Church, you will find us there, Alness BC. You can visit our website, www.alnessbc.org.uk. We're also on Twitter at Alness Baptists. You can look at us up there. We're also on Instagram for those tech-savvy young people that keep an eye on that type of thing as well. You can also find us there. And then if you type in Robert Adair, you'll probably find my Facebook profile somewhere. I'm not wearing my kilt, so I might be out of context when you're looking for me.
Got it.
Oh,
Well,
you just got yourself another Twitter follower.
yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm on there right now.
very good. Well, Josh and Joe will tweet at you, and I will not. But
Rural Pastors Talk will tweet at you.
there you go.
Yeah.
Very good. But again, brother, thank you for being here. It's been a blessing, and tell your family hi, and we'll catch you next
Thank you.
time.
And you all have a good day.
All right.
I'm going home to evening. It's now just coming up close past 6:30.
Ah, well,
All right,
thanks
brother.
for extending your day for
Indeed.
us.
Thank
Enjoy
you so
your
much.
No
evening with your
problem.
family. Yep.
All right,
Take care, brother.
Goodbye.
Blessings on you. God bless.
Bye bye.
Bye.
That was fun, but we do have a bit of a problem.
Uh-oh. What?
It's an emergency of sorts.
An SOS?
I think it sounds like that one. Someone's sending one out, and that's because we need you to help us by
Subscribing
offering a review.
and sharing.
You know how to do them. Just get after it.
Mm-hmm.
No stuff rural pastors can use reviews today unless you guys have something you're dying to share with us.
Nope.
Okay, we wanted to use our time to give to our guests, but we do have a quote we'll end with by another guy from across the pond, but he's English, Nathaniel Vincent. Christ is not truly prized at all unless he is prized above all. Rural pastor, prize Christ above all and serve him faithfully. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time on Rural Pastors Speaking Scottish.
Adios.
Raise your Ebenezer.
Thanks again for joining us on this edition of Rural Pastors Talk, the Scottish Invasion. We've been glad. That was very British. We've been very glad to have you, and we hope to see you again next time for episode number 76, where we talk about other things that rural pastors want to know. way too late to talk. It's almost over. But guess what I bought? Oh yeah, he's way up there.
Way up there. What did you bought?
Lagos.
You did?
Bum bum bum.
Can you believe it?
Well, I can.
I had several pastors reprimand me for not having it. You
Which package did you go with?
gold.
No. Which package did you go with? The Methodist one?
The Free Church.
Free church.
Reformed gold.
Ah,
Yeah.
very nice.
I did. I'm excited to dive in. I need somebody to teach me how to use it.
I was just going to say that sounds like a learning curve.
I think it will be.
No offense to our Methodist brothers, by the way. I take
I saw your face get red after you said that.
my slander back. My apologies.
I got the Charles Wesley version.
Charles was the hymn writer. I think John.
Well, they
was
both
the
were on
pastor.
hymns.
Yeah, John was the one that formed the. Anyway, it doesn't matter.